to be covering Common Core State Standard 6 EE.5 through .9, which is solving multi-step and single-step equations. Now, what this state standard encompasses is independent and dependent variables and the relationships between them, solving real-world mathematical problems, and then we're going to do a little bit of PEMDAS in there, which should be background knowledge. Okay, so let's start out by discussing independent and dependent variables. The independent variable is usually a quantity that can change in your equation that affects other quantities, and no other quantities really affect our independent variable. Now, vice versa, the dependent variable is the variable that is usually directly affected by the independent variable. So let's look at a situation and dive in. So let's say we have gas in a car and distance traveled for our real world situation. Now, how much gas we have affects how far we can drive. So we're going to say that our G, representing gas, is our independent variable, and D represents distance. Now I'm going to say that again. Distance depends on how much gas we have. Gas does not depend on how much distance we have. Cool. So now moving forward, let's say we have another situation where we have money I have and how much candy I can buy. The independent variable in this situation will be M, representing money I have, and the dependent variable will be C, representing how much candy I can buy. Having reviewed independent and dependent variables, we're going to dive into a little more review and discuss inverse operations. Now, the inverse of addition is subtraction, as the inverse of subtraction is addition, and we're going to use that to solve these two simple equations right here. So this equation says x plus 9 equals 24. So what we're going to solve for is x, and you can see we're adding 9 to x, so we're going to have to subtract 9, and we're going to have to do that to 24 as well. So we have x plus 9 minus 9, and that's where we're directly using the inverse, and we have 24 minus 9 as well. Notice we're subtracting 9 from both sides of the equation, because what you do on one side of the equal sign you need to do to the other, and that is just a known fact you should use when solving equations. Now x plus 9 minus 9 will just leave x on this side, on the left hand side, and 24 minus 9 will leave 15 on the right hand side, and that'll give us x equals 15. Now let's dive into this guy. X minus 12 equals 36. Now just as we subtract a 9 over here, we're going to add 12 to this side, because that is the inverse of subtracting 12. So x minus 12 plus 12 is what we want to do on the left hand side, and 36 plus 12 is what we want to do on the right hand side. Now minus 12 and plus 12 will cancel out to just leave x, and 36 plus 12 will give us x equals 48. Alright, so let's discuss some more inverse operations. We're going to discuss division and multiplication. The inverse of division is multiplication, and the inverse of multiplication is division. And let's use that to solve these two one-step equations right here. So, we have x divided by 9 equals 3. Now the inverse of dividing by 9 is multiplying by 9, because the inverse of division is multiplication. So we're going to do that to both sides of our equation. So we're going to multiply by 9 on this side of our equation, which is our left-hand side, and this side of our equation, which is our right-hand side. Now x divided by 9 multiplied 9 by 9 will just leave x on this side, and 3 times 9 will leave 27 on the other, and that'll give us x equals 27, solving our equation. So now we have this guy, which is x times 7 equals 35. And we're going to divide by 7, because the inverse of multiplying by 7 is dividing by 7. And we need to do that to both sides of our equation. So this times 7 and dividing by 7 will cancel out, leaving x, as they are inverses. And this 35 divided by 7 will leave 5, because 35 divided by 7 is 5. Thus completing our equation, giving x equals 5. So let's put it all together and include all inverses and solve a multi-step equation. So we have 4x plus x multiplied by 12 divided by 3 equals 24. So the first thing I see when I look at this equation is these parentheses, which you might take note of is the first step in PEMDAS. And 12 divided by 3 will give us 4. So that'll give us 4x plus 4x equals 24. Now moving forward, we're going to combine these two x's, so 4x plus 4x, which will give us 8x equals 24. And this looks a lot more easy to solve than this big intimidating guy up here. So this is just like the problem we solved on the last slide. It's a one-step equation. So we have 8x equals 24, and we're multiplying by 8x. And the inverse of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide by 8 as we are multiplying by 8 right here. And we're going to divide by 8 on our right side as well. Now notice this looks a little different than the multiplication did on the last side because it is just written as 8x and not 8 times x. You can see it in both forms, so I wanted to show you guys both forms on this slideshow. And you can see that right here on the screen. Alright, so now we have 8x divided by 8, which the 8's will cancel, just leaving x, and 24 divided by 8, which will just leave us 3, and that solves our equation, leaving x equals 3. Alright, so let's solve one more multi-step equation and continue to put all the pieces in which we discussed earlier together. Notice there is now elevator music playing in the background, as music for myself helps stimulate my brain and helps me solve math problems easier. This is an exercise that has been proven to have benefits in stimulating the brain, and you should try it yourself just to see if it works for you. Alright, so let's dive into this equation. So we have 4 times x minus 3 in parentheses plus 7 equals 75. Now the first thing I see is these parentheses, and we need to distribute that 4 into there. So the 4 will go to the x and to the 3. And this will leave us with 4x minus 12 plus 7 equals 75. And notice that negative 12 plus 7 will leave us with negative 5. And that'll leave us with 4x minus 5 equals 75. So we almost have this guy down to one-step equation. What we want to do next is add this 5 over to the other side. So we have 4x minus 5, and we're going to add 5 as the inverse of subtraction is addition, and we need to do that to the right hand side as well. So this minus 5 and this plus 5 will cancel out and leave 0, and 75 plus 5 will leave 80. So now we just have 4x equals 80, and this looks a lot more or less intimidating right here than what we started with, because it is no longer a multi-step equation, it is a single-step equation, as we only have one more step left in solving for x. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide by 4 on both sides now, as division is the inverse of multiplication. So we have this 4 times x divided by 4, and then on the right hand side we're going to have 80 divided by 4. Now these two will cancel out, leaving just x, and 80 divided by 4 will leave 20, leaving x equals 20, solving our equation. I want to make note of this real quick, that this is 4 times x. We saw this on the last slide, and you can see either 4x or 4 multiplication symbol x, and you just need to know the two and understand that they're both multiplying by x. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed my video.